She's really trying to point to some of these instances where the former president has disrespected veterans in her view, has talked about, why would these people serve their country, like visiting Arlington National Cemetery. So she's trying to go on the attack. The big question is this actually going to make a difference? I think there is not a lot of hope at this point when you look at the polling, but South Carolina does have a huge military community, so she's hoping that, that would stick.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by congressional reporter Samantha Jo Roth. SJ, you got a tip from the Nikki Haley campaign about a new ad blitz that they're going to do, sort of focusing on a particular aspect of former President Donald Trump. What's this new line of attack?
Yeah, so I think over the last couple of days, specifically since we saw over the weekend that former President Trump really attacked her husband, asking where has he been, why is he not on the trail? As we know, he is deployed overseas as part of the South Carolina National Guard. So, she's really trying to use this line of attack as a way to sort of look at how the former president has dealt with military issues, how he's dealt with, talking about veterans. And so recently she just put out a series of ads looking at specifically the fact that the former president has not served in the military himself.
Right.
And he was able to get away with 5 different times that he could, he deferred.
Yeah, the deferments during Vietnam.
Yes, and I think 4 of them were due to education, and one of them was health reasons due to bone spurs. So one of the recent ads that recently came out was they were looking, basically it puts together a bunch of news articles, news clips, where in the very beginning of his run in 2015, 2016, people really focused on the fact that he did this despite, being an athlete in college.
Right.
And we can't ever forget when he said back in, I think I was actually there,
Right.
in, I think it was end of 2015 when he said talking about John McCain,
Sure.
saying that they like people that weren't captured.
Right.
That was
a war hero is somebody who wasn't captured, right?
And that was in Iowa. I was actually at that event. So, she's really trying to point to some of these instances where the former president has disrespected veterans in her view, has talked about, why would these people serve their country, like visiting Arlington National Cemetery? So she's trying to go on the attack. The big question is this actually going to make a difference? I think, there is not a lot of hope at this point when you look at the polling, but South Carolina does have a huge military community, so she's hoping that, that would stick.
Right, it seems like there's a little bit of a hope that maybe a combination of veterans and active duty personnel and crossover voters could give her a sort of respectable showing in South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact of the matter is she still has money. She's planning on going to Texas. She's, looking forward. The big question is, when does that money run out?
Sure.
When do people say it's time to pull the plug? For now, it doesn't look like she's going anywhere, but it could be a big wake-up call when she loses her own state of South Carolina.
So there was a special election in New York, and a lot of Democrats are hoping that their victory there proves that there's a viable way forward for them on immigration and the border, which have been real big liabilities for them under President Biden. You've written about this. Why do they feel this way about it?
Yeah, so former Representative Suozzi won, and he really went about this in such a different way. He really addressed the border immigration head on. He really embraced the bipartisan Senate deal. And so a lot of Democrats are looking at this saying, maybe perhaps this provides a roadmap for us. If we get out in front of it, we stop ignoring, the issue, and we say, look, Republicans just rejected this deal that, a lot of people say would have made this situation better, and kind of turn the table around on the Republicans. A lot of people also are looking at this Suozzi race saying, maybe this isn't a fair way to look at the path forward. This was a special election. You also have a candidate who is well known to the voters there. He's been in public life.
He'd held the seat.
Exactly, exactly. So he may not necessarily be a great person, but I think regardless of the conditions of that particular race, people are looking at the fact that he really ran on immigration. He made this the centerpiece of his campaign. He wasn't afraid of, running down to one of these detention centers to try and rebut a point that his opponent had made. And so I think a lot of Democratic strategists are looking at this, especially when you're looking at Democrats across the country, particularly those that are in battleground districts that are moderates, saying maybe this is a way that we can move forward. We can address the immigration. We can address the border. We can say that this is a problem, and maybe this is the way to go about it. It is interesting to note, though, that Suozzi had a significant amount of money when you look at that. And money isn't everything, but it certainly helps.
I'd like some. So
I know. Yeah, exactly. But, in this race, he certainly had a leg up because of the money. And so a lot of people are pointing that up.
And this is a flip. This is a flip toward the Democrats because this used to be George Santos' seat.
Yes, and this is a race that Republicans have won over the last 3 years. So this was a big deal, but just to put it in perspective, I think a lot of Democrats are looking at this saying, it's a great victory, but is this a bellwether?
Right.
Unclear, especially in an election year when the president. The nice thing about this Suozzi race is there was nobody on the top of the ticket, and that is something that Democrats are going to have to contend with. A president that is not very popular, and whether to embrace him, to run away from him. That is something that they're going to have to contend with. And you saw Suozzi several times speaking out against the president. And clearly voters were happy with that.
So Montana is having a Senate race this year, and it's viewed as a big pickup opportunity for Republicans. But things have also gotten a little messier, complicated on the GOP side.
Yes, it's gotten a lot messier, and I would say that it is something that establishment Republicans were hoping would not happen, and unfortunately it did, and that is that Representative Matt Rosendale has gotten into the race. If you don't remember, Matt Rosendale has already challenged vulnerable Senator Jon Tester. He lost to him in 2018. So, this cycle, Republicans were looking at Sheehy. Why am I forgetting his first
businessman
name?
Tim Sheehy.
Tim Sheehy,
Businessman,
a former Navy SEAL, a veteran, somebody that somebody who's new, but who
and viewed as an attractive candidate.
Exactly, has a pedgree that a lot of them like. So, a lot of the national Republicans had endorsed Sheehy. They'd been really trying to get Rosendale out of this race. We even saw, a really interesting situation last week with the House Speaker who was planning to endorse Rosendale and then ended up not doing so under pressure from what I'm hearing from a lot of, McConnell's people. So, now basically he and Rosendale have to face off in this primary before they even get to challenging Jon Tester. And I think Republicans are really looking at Montana, and they see this potentially to be a very good pickup opportunity for them. The big question is, after a primary at this rate, will it actually be a good pickup opportunity for them? We're going to have to wait and see.
Because you always worry about bad feelings lingering after the fact, and the money that you have to spend to win the primary and things
absolutely,
like that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people were just hoping that this would not be the reality. I think you hear a lot of allies of Sheehy who are trying to spin this and say, look, if he is able to defeat Rosendale, it's going to be a better situation for him. He will have been tested in some way.
Tested before Tester.
Tested before Tester, yeah. So we will see. But, Jon Tester has, been very strong in the state, but it is a state that is turning significantly more red. We've seen the state legislature turn more red. So
presidential election year, so
yes.
Trump presumably, but a Republican nominee will be at the top of the ticket.
Right, exactly. So the conditions are not great for Tester, but he is a known commodity and he has been able to escape a lot of attacks in the past, specifically by branding his opponents. We saw last cycle he called Rosendale Marilyn Matt.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he has to say about Sheehy.
Terrible
I think.
Tim.
Yeah.
Untested Tim.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you, SJ.
Thank you.
You can read Samantha Joe and the rest of our political team's coverage at WashingtonExaminer.com.